All right, I'm back. We ready?
You're ready. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
You want to start the deal on start the event on Discord? We forgot last week. I did it like 20 minutes in.
Oh, okay. I
That's
always
when all those
forget.
people showed up.
I can remember to turn the event, like end the event, but I always forget to start it.
Gotcha. Hi, Drum.
Hello, hello.
We're just getting started.
All right, treasury balance. This one was a week old, so let's look at what it is now. Looks like we're sitting at. Oh gosh, this thing's messing up. $983,000 Star Atlas, 400,000 USDC. That's for PIP ones, the DAO treasury.
Almost billionaires.
Yeah.
Almost.
And then for the ecosystem fund, we're sitting at 208,000. Maybe we should go to balance changes. Is that okay? Yeah. All right, PIP tracker. There's been no PIP movement that I can see, so it's still the same as it was last week. PIP accounting spreadsheet, has that changed much?
Yeah, we paid out. I wish Bodie was here. We paid out the 18, I think. I'll go to the kitchen. So yeah, PIP 18 in the kitchen.
10 million Atlas, it looks like.
Yeah, 18 and 8.
Oh, there's 7.9 right there. Okay. Yeah, I see it now.
So there we go.
Okay. I had already recorded that we paid 7.9 million to Ride Systems. Did we pay? Is that what this additional 10.6 million is?
I think it's the one below the 7.9 there.
Below?
That one, right? No, right there where your mouse is.
This one?
I think so, right?
Yep. I have that one recorded up here.
Those two were for sorry, I just hopped in here. Those two are for the GamesCon pips. PIP 8 and PIP 18. Those two that were 20 hours ago.
Okay. So we paid about 10.6 million. Atlas.
It was two separate pips.
Oh.
One was for the second half of the original.
Yeah.
And then the other one was for the extension.
Yeah.
Which one? Oh, is it this in-person community meetups platform?
No.
Yeah. Yep. PIP 8. That one is
no.
PIP 8.
Yeah, it's definitely not the meetup platform.
This one?
It was
Comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So paid 5 million Atlas to PIP 8 Comet, and then we
Which was
paid
the actual first PIP approved by the community.
Okay. Oh, so that was it 5.6? Was the one, or is that the 5 million?
Let me check. I got it right here. PIP 8 was 5.6.
Okay, cool. All right, so 5.6 and the 5 million was to the recent one?
Yeah, that was to PIP 18.
PIP 18, okay. And Pip 18 was the merch expansion. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And then in our council chat on Discord, I threw the squads multi-sig, the Iris Bounty. I threw the address of that squads in there. We don't have to update it now, but we did make 2 payments out of there.
Right. We paid the Italy meetup and we paid for the Valencia one.
Correct.
Are those awaiting us to the multi-sig
No.
signatures?
I think
Approved
Drum
already.
signed the last one. We only
Oh,
need
man.
3 out of 6 signatures.
I really want to do that one time because I haven't done that yet. When did that happen?
That was on the day after our meeting. The
Yeah, last Sunday.
10th.
Well,
Yeah.
we end up signing it about Tuesday, I think.
So we paid 1,000
Um,
USDC. 500
no,
each.
it was
Yeah.
Atlas, but yeah, it was 1,000. Well, it ended up being more than that since by the time it actually went through,
Okay, I got
it
to
was
get
like,
the link
yeah,
for 2 Iris bounty events, right?
Yeah.
yep.
One was
And
the
the wall,
Valencia one.
Yep.
Yeah, Valencia and Italy. I don't know where in Italy was it.
Okay.
It was.
Alrighty. Cool. And what else?
Hey, Emperor, they didn't submit anything for the meetup for the Netherlands, right?
correct.
Yeah. Surprise.
Was that Funcracker?
I imagine.
Yeah,
Funcracker, if
he's
you're listening to
talking.
this, put in for it.
No, no. I talked to him yesterday. It's just not gonna work out.
Oh. Didn't take 7 pictures, huh?
Uh, he wanted a few more people to show up than were signed up. So
Oh yeah, I heard something about it.
yeah.
Maybe people will go last minute. Who knows?
Alright, anyone else? Bodhi, Signal, any other accomplishments?
I have no
For
accomplishments. Don't
no,
have
for
to say
accomplishments,
otherwise.
Bodhi, you had some other stuff you were working on in the chamber with Kylini or whatever.
With who? Was
With
it about
Kylini, you
the
were
verb? Oh yeah. So it's more of a discussion topic than an achievement.
okay.
But it had
We
to do
can.
with the verbiage on there was a misunderstanding. Basically, the way that they had phrased something was the implications were far different than kind of the way that we read it. So I just wanted to standardize the verbiage to make it really clear. But yeah, like I said, it's more of a discussion piece.
Alright, what am I
Okay.
writing down? Verbiage on what?
Well, which pip
Uh,
was that?
it was PIP
It was the
18.
extension, right? The
Pip
common
Yeah, it was
18.
for
extension.
it was the 10%. It's down in the costs. It's down in the cost section. I think it's like section 8 or something. It was about the 10%. Remember how we were talking about a 10% buffer to account for Atlas
Volatility.
price fluctuations? Like if they had $1,000 bill and then they asked for $1,000, but then Atlas dropped 10%. Now they're out $100.
I'm showing on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that second portion there, the way that I read it, and I think the way that we all understood it as well, was the way that we had discussed it originally, which was basically that. So back to the $1,000 example, if you request for if you have $1,000 bill, then basically you approve the PIP for 1,100, and then but you're basically saying I would just want to make sure I get $1,000 at the end of the day. So if by the time the money gets sent to me, if there's like a volatility event and the price drops, then I can come back and request that extra $100, like extra 10%. So but that's the way that I think it was intended, and does read that way if you read it that way. The pip kind of reflects that, but they had intended it a different way, which because of it's I wouldn't say it's necessarily vague, but it's open to interpretation the way that it's written. You can also interpret it the way that they intended it, which is very different. They basically assumed the 10% up front. So they just said, we're just going to get 1,100, and back to that $1,000 example, we're just getting $1,000 or 1,100. And then it also was, if the price drops even more than that, then they can request even more. So it was like kind of way different
Oh,
than what we had
no.
discussed.
Nope.
Yeah, yeah, I know. But if you read it, it can be read both ways. And that was the problem. And that's what I want to discuss is, kind of standardizing that verbiage and making so that it's very, very clear. And then when people want to add in that option, which I think is a good option, to account for those types of events, then it's very clear, and it's kind of like because the way that they had intended it is it's just basically none of us would have, had we interpreted it that the correct way, the way they intended, none of us would have agreed to it, because it basically just says that no matter how much the price drops, like they're getting the 10% up front, and then on top of that, no matter how much the price drops beyond that, they can request more.
Yeah, the way I
Um,
read this is you have a 10% Atlas buffer, which they calculated to be €525. That buffer is calculated based on the potential Atlas price fluctuations at the time of payout. This sentence over here, the reserving the 7-day right, and in case of shortfall, to
yeah,
me says that they have the right to request this buffer within 7 days if they need within the buffer range. Here is what tips me off on that. And in case of that shortfall, they're entitled to request a top up to 10%.
but it doesn't say up to 10%.
Sure it
See,
does. Plus 10%.
no, it says if it falls. So again, it's I read this pretty carefully myself, and based on what they were saying, it can definitely be interpreted the way that they intended. So it's saying that they have a 7-day right to review and verify that it falls within that buffer range. So
Yes.
basically, they're saying it can drop ten
I'm
percent. It can drop from the amount that we got
I'm
down
with
to ten
Lancer here.
percent.
I'm with Lancer here because those 2 points are not independent of each other. One is the main point, and second one is an explanation on how it's calculated.
Yeah.
But it's just up to 10% because that's the 1 point. The other one is just how you calculate if you're gonna get those 525 or 400 of those.
Yeah. So this
Which
right here.
again is a fair backup just in case, but the amount of Atlas that is calculated in the moment that they are sending you that day that they are doing the operation. So it would be just in case that overnight the prices are dropping and whatever, and then they need to do the exchange quick. They can recover something here up to 10%, which
Yeah.
I think is
Well,
fair.
Up to
well,
€525 in
Yeah, correct.
excess.
regardless, we should really standardize exactly how we think that should be implemented, um, because it's like a fail safe of sorts. It's not particular. It's not. I guess you could say particular to individual pips. Like the way that this should be handled should be standardized. Um, to avoid any confusion, because I mean, I side with you guys. I definitely read it that way, but going back and forth with him, they had a completely different intention, and it's a valid the way that it is written can apply to both scenarios. Um,
Okay. Got
The,
it.
the thing is
so
that
it just needs to be clarified.
that was my joke that you're not used to deal with Yeremas, in the sense that any way you guys are theory crafting, there's not an issue, and when they send the deposit to public, there's a high probability the market is decent and is either sideways or improving. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. And then if there's an issue, we have up to 10% on which we agree. And again, it's just
Well, they got the 10% up front. Yeah, because that's, like I said, it can be interpreted both ways. So
Yeah, it might be able to be
they
interpreted
got the
both ways,
10%.
but it's
They
only
got
going
the
to be done one
10%
way.
on top of the receipt, and they are under budget.
say again.
Yeah.
That they got the 10%, but on top of the exact amount of the receipt that they are sending, and they are under budget overall, even with the 10%.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why it wasn't an issue this time, is because there's still, even after giving the 10% up front, they're still underneath, well below the total approved, the total approved for the PIP. And I made that clear, like, to them. But like I said, I just think that we should standardize the verbiage so that there's like zero miscommunication. Like, I think that the 10% shouldn't be sent in advance. I think that it should be a buffer, not, I guess, I don't know what you would call, like a retainer or something. I don't even, or it's more of a retainer actually, right? So it's like, if their bill is $1,000, we send them $1,000, and then if by the time they get it, right, which has to be within a reasonable amount of time, if it drops a little bit there, then they have an extra amount that's approved as well, specifically for that case. But it shouldn't be a given. It should be for that scenario,
Yeah.
I'm
because
a big
basically,
I'm
go
a
ahead.
big proponent that some things should be standardized, but others we should remain flexible, because this is not something that every PIP should have. It's just they decided to add this for comfort because they were tight on the budget. But some people are choosing to leave the part of the money in Atlas in the ecosystem, so this doesn't apply. And
Yeah.
we should go case
Right.
by case and try not to make too many written rules, and just keep these experiences up to our list for the feedback we gave when we're looking at these pips.
Well,
That's
I
my
think,
Bodhi,
I,
wait,
recommendation.
wait,
I
wait.
think,
Let me get this down right. So, Bodhi, you're saying the interpretation by the author was that they would get the full 57.75 euro up front, and then the 10% would apply on top of that within the 7 day, right? Yes?
no, no, they took whatever the invoice was, they added 10%, and then that's what we sent them. So they get, even if the price goes up, they're getting the upside automatically. But if the price goes down, then they already have the 10% up front, right? And then on top of that, the way that they had intended for it to be, the way that they had presented it, and from where they were coming from, was that if it went even lower than that, they can also request a top up. Which, if you read it, it can be interpreted that way. So that is a valid position. And that's why I think it should be standardized, because
Well, but
this isn't
they are just making the right to complain, but that's about it.
Yeah.
That's not the right
right.
to get a top up. That's
But why even open ourselves up to having these miscommunications when it's something that it's not really
I agree. I
like
just think that,
subjective to
that's
each kind
feedback
of
that we
PIP.
should give. That's feedback that we should give when it's a draft. That's all I'm saying. We just gotta be on top of those little details, because everything else is very tends to get generic, because there's many things that are very subjective on the sections of the PIP. What's the benefits for the community and all this stuff.
And we live
So
reviewed
these are
this
the
one,
things where we
and
need.
I remember us having this exact conversation when it was happening. We all just
No,
agreed it
we
really wasn't
didn't
that big of a deal.
we we definitely did not discuss the way that they had intended it to be, the way that they, from their perspective, the way that it was written was never on the table until it came time for payment. And then it was just clearly the way that they had intended it. We would have never accepted it. That's why I think that it should be standardized. It should be standardized to the way that it would be expected to be.
Gotcha,
Because
because I get deja vu because I do remember you talking about this part of it. Meaning you
Yeah,
going, well,
absolutely. Talking about the
it's not
10%.
really
Absolutely.
defined.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. I remember us all talking about this together while we were looking at the bit. I remember it was a big action item for you.
So what's the solution? To just put an asterisk and say the intention of this 10% buffer is to mitigate price fluctuation? Would that solve all of this if that little asterisk was on there?
No, wait. I'm writing it in here so that we can. So I see two decision points. One is, will we or will we not entertain a top up as part of any standard practice with dealing with these pips? Sounds like no.
That
That's been our practice so
no,
far.
that I think that it should. I think that that's how it should be. I think that it should be that they request the actual amount that it costs them, and then they should also have a 10% retainer or buffer or whatever on top of that. Um,
Okay, so
assuming that doesn't push them over the maximum amount, and then if in the event that during the disbursement, because sometimes over the weekend or takes a couple days, sometimes the price can drop, and then there's that extra 10% that they can say, hey, the price dropped on me, and by the time I actually went to sell it, it was 10% less. Can I get that extra 10%? That's how it should
so then
be.
the decision is, will we entertain a 10% top up in the future if a pip requests it?
Yeah,
We
but I
already
just think that
decided that last time. I think, correct. I don't want to talk about this for the entire thing, but
That's what
correct
I'm
me if
trying to get to a
I'm wrong.
decision right now.
Yeah. So the decision, it's already been made that they
yeah.
can request 10% more. We talked about that ad nauseum twice now, but it's the timing of when they get that 10%. That 10% is only in case asterisk if the price fluctuates by time the final payment is sent and it's converted to another currency, then you get it. You don't get it before, you don't get any of it. It's just extra, that little bit of clarification. Would that be correct?
So you get it
Yeah,
at
and
the
I think
time, so it's not
I
up
think
front.
that yeah, and I
Right.
think that we create that we lock that in by having a standardized way of presenting that part. You can just plug this paragraph into your costs and allocations, and it just takes care of it automatically, right? And it's done. It's a standardized way of
Yeah,
processing
you,
that.
you you can make a verbiage that we just recommend in the on the feedback stage, and like, hey, this is how we dealt with this in the past, and this is how we think is the best way to go, and you can recommend that. It's
Well, but
at the end.
if we're not going to require it, then it's basically just however they want to do it. So we kind of
Well,
run back into the same issue.
it's always however we want to do it. We're requiring certain things for the way we are gonna decide if we're gonna pass them over or not.
So our current
But
decision on the table is that a buffer is not paid up front. Yes?
Correct.
Okay, all
So
in
if we're
favor
not going to
say
allow
aye.
that, then we should. Yeah, I definitely agree with
Aye.
that.
Signal, do you disagree?
Yes.
and Buddy, my point is that this is council making their own structure, but this is not Britain law that all peeps need to have this specific way. We don't have that power to enforce that, but this is just the way we review them. This is what we recommend
Sure
to
we do.
avoid misunderstandings.
It honestly sounds like it should be another one of like Lancer's clarifications or modifications of process. We shouldn't expect
Uh,
every single person to write the same exception.
that's true. I could put it in the ecosystem fund refresh.
Yeah, I would love for it to be standardized
Expecting
because I
every
don't
single
see any
person.
reason. Sorry, go on.
Okay, I'm gonna put it right here in the funding rules.
I just don't see any reason for something like this to be open to interpretation. I think it should just be very clear. It's a very like it's not a subjective type of mechanic. It's a 10% buffer if the price drops. Like that should be very well standardized in my opinion.
No,
So
I
any
agree.
buffer top up is not paid up front. It will be paid when.
Well, there should also be a time limit. So I don't know, like say like 3 days or something after the payment. I feel like that's a reasonable amount of time for somebody to get to the computer and see if they got paid.
Uh, I would say 7. Me personally.
That's
Yeah,
like 2 years of life in crypto.
Yeah, but
yeah. Seven is kind of a lot. I think anywhere between. I think 3 is a minimum, and yeah, I would say 7 is like a maximum. So
how about we just
maybe
say
So
say
5
I
5.
then?
was
5.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. It will
This is,
be.
this is the part that makes me a little uncomfortable, that we're just pulling numbers out of our ass and just putting there, and now it's a rule. That's the only thing that.
Well, that's how
Well,
this
I think
goes. We come up with what
we're.
we think is the right decision, and then we go with it.
I think we're being pretty graceful with that. To be honest, I think 5 days is like. I mean, if you're going to basically be coming back to the DAO and saying, "Hey, my payment was short because I
Why
didn't
don't
get
we
to it."
ask Glenn what's the standard procedure here and just do whatever is standard?
What do you mean? What's the standard procedure? He won't. What? He won't know.
I don't
Well,
think there is a standard
they do
procedure.
this for a living, right? They manage DAOs and they pay funds, and there must be procedures for this. I'm sure we're not inventing the wheel. This must be a thing, and there must be a standard for
Well,
this.
I don't think
just to
there's
put
a
it into
standard for this.
just just to put it into context, we're talking about somebody coming back to the DAO because they didn't get to their payment within 5 days, and now the price dropped on them 10%, and they're asking for more money. So I feel like we're being pretty gracious at
Yeah,
that,
yeah. I don't know why the
that
policyholder
number.
need to pay for that.
Well, I think that there should be at least some degree of leeway
If you
there
put a
because
provision of 10% on, you have it on your PIP and people voted for it, you have those $500 in case you get impacted by a volatility issue with the payment. If that happens, just put the complaint on what you lost, and that get paid until the amount approved, and that's it.
So it will be
Not
assessed
getting
and
to your
paid.
payment in 10 days sounds like the real problem. I mean, we all had this discussion a while ago about coordinating payments, and they should pick a time that's ideal for them. But if you held Atlas for 10 straight days and you didn't do anything to convert it whatsoever, and you're like, oh, it dropped 10% on like day 10, what can you do for me? Like
Yeah.
nothing, dudes. You
yeah,
speculated on the token as far as I'm concerned.
exactly.
You
That's
thought
why I
maybe
think
you thought maybe it would come up to the good for you, and it didn't. And because it didn't, now you want us to bail you out. If it
right,
had 2x, you wouldn't have said, let me give it back to you.
But if
exactly.
and this is what I mean. If we were dealing with a large amount of people, like we're doing 200 payments a month and whatever, but it's just couple payments we're doing. We send the money, we let them know, and they give us a thumbs up, and that's as simple as it gets. It's very organic. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I need to know within 5 days of what? Of payment
Yeah,
of what?
of the transaction.
Okay, transaction date.
Because then it's pretty easy to check if somebody comes up and says, "Hey, my payment dropped." We look at when they sent that message. We look at when the payment was sent, and
Yeah, but now instead of dealing with the odd case, we're setting a standard where every case people can exploit up to 5 days of market. I don't I don't
so the
I
only
don't
the
see
only
why
way to
we
make
want to
that
do
I
less
it.
agree. We had
exploitable.
this debate before.
I think
the-
I don't understand why we would do that. This is not in the best interest of the treasure. And I'm not
The
trying
The
only
to screw
conclusion we
any
came to
developer. If
last
we send
time,
a payment and they give us a thumbs up, that's good. If they have a problem and they had a buffer, good, we deal it. It's just very simple. I don't understand
okay,
why.
okay, but
the
if they
conclusion
don't
we
give you
came
a
to last time was that they had to pick a date, and a time to receive it so that they couldn't make these excuses later. So like, I don't know how we kind of wound up in a situation where we all agreed that that made sense. Like, okay, yeah, they said they would receive it at this time or this date, and we gave it to them at that time or date. Um, and then we're back to like these windows of time, which again, yeah, it's the same position I had when we talked about this like a month ago. If you give me Atlas for like 5 days and you're going to protect it to the downside, of course I'm going to, for 5 days and see if it goes up.
So then what
It's
am I
it
writing?
encourages
What am I
it
Just put
writing?
encourages
any
speculation.
buffer pre-approved is not paid up front, period. And leave it like that. Why do we have to give like these random periods that we're pulling out of our ass right now?
Because
because
then
then
everyone gets to pull out of their ass anytime for any pip.
No,
yeah, they could
first of
wait.
all, they have to approve the 10%, and then it's already approved. It doesn't matter when the transaction happens. If they got impacted, we pay up to that point. It's just very easy. I don't understand.
Because someone's going to put
Yeah, I think
30
they just
days
need to
then.
pick the date they receive the funds. I think that's all it comes down to is what date are you going to receive X amount of Atlas
Normally,
or
how
X
it
amount of.
works is that the Michael gave us the thumbs up, and they send it, and when they are ready, and that's it. We reach out, and they give us a thumbs up that they got it, and normally that happens within a few hours. And if that gets to impact anyone, because they couldn't get to the computer in 1 or 2 days, and they let us know, and they had a buffer, we pay for it. It's very
So wait,
simple.
Carlos. So these, they chose 7 days in this pip. So you'd be comfortable with someone, any pip author selecting whatever day they want. Some will pick 5, some will pick 1, some will pick
Well,
30.
apparently we
You'll
were,
be okay
because
with
we
that?
reviewed this and we didn't bring it up. They could put there like 277 days, and if we
Yeah, that's
say, "Oh,
great.
that sounds wonderful," they're gonna ask for it. We just gotta use
I
common
really
sense
feel
and
like we
review.
debated
That
this
sounds way
already,
more
though.
complicated.
Yeah, but now we have a
This
situation
feels
where
like the
it's
same
actually
situation
happening.
that we agreed on a solution to,
Well,
and we're just
I'm going to be honest,
rediscussing it.
Signal. I'm going to be honest. I don't think that idea of timing it is necessarily going to work. I think that because the multi sig and I don't. I mean, I can
Yeah,
talk to Swagner
buddy.
about it again. I'll talk to Swagner again and see if it's a possibility. But I mean, it's not that much different than saying, okay, you have 3 or 5 days. Like it's basically the same thing. You're saying, okay,
All I'm
you'll be
doing is
there at
making
this
sure I'm
time.
not taking crazy pills. This is the same conversation, right? Like we are. I'm at least
It
right
is
on
the
that.
same
Like I don't mind if
conversation,
the solution
yes.
doesn't work. Okay, very good.
But
Just
we still
checking
don't
myself.
have like for example, I reached out to these guys and I said, hey, given to I said, can you at least give me like uh um a assurance that you'll be there's nothing going on for this next week, this 7-day period that's going to have you away from the computer for like 3-4 days, and they were like, no, we don't want to like commit to that. So it's like I feel like we
Yeah, it's
to
bullshit.
we should protect this is it's also not just protecting the DAO funds, it's protecting our time too, right? Because if we just leave it open ended, then at any point in the future, if the price goes below when they receive the money, they can just request extra money. And then we have to go check and see, well, did they sell those tokens? Like, are they even holding them? I mean, it's just I think that putting a time limit on it, and then it's like that's your option. It's expired. It's like you have 1 week to return your item at the store. Once it's over, it's over.
How
Listen,
about
Like
if you
this?
want to
You're right.
put
How
if
about
you
this
want to
right
put
now?
this in the knowledge base, I'm okay for it. I don't want this in PIP 1 in the revision of the foundational pips of the DAO. No.
Yeah, no,
For
knowledge
now,
base,
I think
exactly.
my spicy take is I agree with Drum. Meaning, frankly, it's whatever you write into your PIP that people voted into existence.
Guys,
Theoretically, if you write into your PIP that it's good for 365 days or some crazy thing, and the community actually votes in and approves that language, then it is what it is.
Yeah,
It
no,
takes a
it's
lot of
not.
balls to write that in. Yeah.
It's not what it is. The foundation can say like, no, you're fucking crazy. We're not paying that, and that's the end of it. So,
Well,
so, so it's not. We have a safeguard behind that as well.
it would leave every
Right.
single pip open constantly. Then any pip that did this would be constantly open, and at any point in the future, they could be like, "Oh, today's the day I decided to swap." But guess what? The price is lower, so I need more
Don't
Atlas.
set a precedent in the foundations of the DAO is my thing. If you want to
they
put
don't
rules
have
here
one,
in the knowledge
Carlos.
base and you all vote for it, I will vote against, but I don't mind. I won't put my foot down. But just let's just not get into the habit of pulling numbers out of our ass and now make rules that affect every upcoming PIP.
I don't
We
think it
don't
is. I think
actually.
No,
that
man. I don't want to have this
Hold,
1 hour long conversation every pip we do because someone decided on a new number.
Yeah, but we already
yeah.
agree on something that makes sense. So when the case comes, we just give that feedback and that's it.
What does that mean? Give the feedback. You're going to still
We
push
might
the
as well
pip forward?
standardize it.
No, if somebody wants to add a buffer, now we know the stuff that we agree is up to 10%, and we are not gonna deal with bullshit more than 3 days. That's fine, but
I now
And I,
agree with Drum and Lanzer.
All
why
right, this
not
is what
me?
I wrote. This is what I wrote. Any buffer top up approved is not paid up front, not to exceed 10% and 3 days.
where are you writing that?
In pip 4 refresh. That's what I'm writing.
So this is
Mm.
you want to make this part of the foundational pips of the DAO? No, I don't think
Yes,
so.
I do. I don't want to have this
I
conversation every
agree.
single time for every single pip.
These are
So
these are
here's
cor- these are
all right.
inconsequential rules of the today
And
that don't necessarily won't reflect what the DAO does in the future. I just think we shouldn't get into.
It is true that the only reason we're arguing this is because it's not clear. So
Yes.
exactly.
I get that what Lands are saying is, well, then let's make it clear.
Okay, so I'm gonna chime in. So there is stuff in the knowledge base that hasn't been necessarily rectified with a pip that we put in there as suggestions right now. They're not like set in stone, um, golden. This is exactly what it's going to be. So to me, this sounds like something that would be added to the knowledge base,
Correct.
not necessarily set in stone with a pip, because this stuff could change.
Console procedure. This is not, governance, uh, direct governance infrastructure. That the purpose of your cleanup is to clean up the language, not to start adding stuff, because then we're going to start going down the hill on a slope that is going to be a pain in the ass.
Well, I think if we're
That's
going to add
fair.
it to
And
the
right
knowledge
now,
base,
updating the knowledge base is like the same as updating a pip for practical purposes. The
Yes, it
knowledge base
is.
is treated as
That's why we should, that's the power we have. We have the power of the knowledge base. We don't have the power of changing governance every time we pull up a number of our ass.
Yes, we
well,
do.
so I think
Yes, we do.
if we're going to put it in a pip, then we would have to be more gracious with the time allotted. Like every company has a deadline on when you can return your items. That's a very standard procedure. It's not a random number we're just pulling it in there. But if it's a standardized procedure in a pip, you'd have to maybe give like a week, right? Or maybe even a little more. Who knows? That's up to debate. If we put it in the knowledge base, then I feel like we could be a little bit more restrictive on it. But ultimately, it's but I just think it's a distinction without a difference, kind of like what Signal is saying. It's for all intents and purposes basically the same. So I don't necessarily see a problem with putting in a pip, but I would argue that if we did that, we would need to maybe give them a little more time, maybe give them a week.
So
Yeah,
you'd
I'm
be
not
okay
an
adding it
avid.
to
I
the
would add
knowledge
this to
base.
the knowledge base and not necessarily to the PIP4 refresh is where I would be at it, because we are creating this thing. And to your point, Lanzer, we do have a certain amount of authority. We do have the authority, whether it's written down anywhere or not, to modify. And this has been talked about a while back. We have the ability to modify the knowledge base as the council, and I think that's where we put it. I'm in favor of this if it goes into the knowledge base and not necessarily into PIP4 refresh.
Well, the PIP4 refresh has to be voted on anyway, so it's not us making that decision. It's the DAO.
Right.
But rather than, right. And maybe in the PIP4
It's
refresh,
a
it talks
non-actionable
about,
PIP at this point as well.
right, correct, to change governance.
Yeah, this thing needs to be reviewed and given feedback by Automata and see if they want to do that and if they want to do it right now. But again, I just think that those PIPs are very important because they are the foundation, and we need to decide what we want to do with them. If we just want to clear the language so there's no confusion, if we want to start expanding on them. And if
Right.
that's what we want, that's a conversation that needs to be a little wider on how we're going to do that and why we're going to do that and who's going to be involved and all that. That's all I'm saying. We have the
So I
knowledge
think
base,
to move,
our Bible, on how we review PIPs and how we help you move them forward to voting. And that's
So I
what we
think
should.
to move on, we can add it to the knowledge base for now, say 5 days, and then we can discuss adding it to PIP4 and what Automata would like it to look like, and go into more details, like you're saying, Drum, to add it to PIP4 if we wanted to. But for now, we should at least put it in the knowledge base, make it standardized, and we should, if it's, we can just ask people, hey, copy and paste this paragraph into your PIP if that's what you're looking for, and we'll make it very, very clear exactly that it's written how it's intended to be, and there's no margin for miscommunication on it.
I
And
think all that
these are
just
the
reset.
cases. These are the cases we need to use to learn on how we give feedback on PIPs and how we review PIPs. And these are the little things that we need to start paying attention once they happen.
They are happening right now.
Yeah.
We just
Well,
spent
yeah, I
40
think,
minutes on it.
Yeah.
yeah. Let's figure out, like, I can write up a draft on how I think it should be worded to add it to the knowledge base, and then we can review it, make sure we dial it in, and then just ask people to copy and paste that paragraph. And like I said, it'll be super clear. There won't be any ability to misinterpret it. And then if somebody doesn't have it written that way, you know, we can be like, yo, like, why wouldn't you write it in this way? Like, what exactly are you looking for? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Say we do that. Just write up a draft to put it in the knowledge base. That would be where I would go, and then we can move on with this thing.
Yeah, cool.
I owe you a bottle of wine, Emperor.
I don't know about that.
All right, so
Are we good to move on then?
I put the decision is that a buffer top up is not paid up front. We couldn't decide on what the percentage buffer is, but we agreed on at least 3 days for a payment transaction from the payment transaction date. We may put the specifics in the knowledge base. Bodhi will write up a draft.
Bingo.
Cool.
And I do feel this is productive. I see there's some comments in the chat. This has been actually extremely productive. Fun? No. Boring as hell? Sure. Productive? Yes.
And
Yeah.
this is literally governance. There's a reason why, like senators and representatives, it's a full-time job. It's not, 1 hour a week, because you're going to have a lot of conversations like this, trying to hash out seemingly ambiguous, in the weeds, random nonsense popping up from edge cases.
Okay.
Yeah. And last thing we
Yeah.
want to do is set a precedent for anything. And
Oh,
you only have one
well, we're
chance to make a
setting
good
one
first
right now.
impression.
We're setting one right now by not deciding on a standard. The precedent is that
No,
they get to decide what it is. That's what it
We
is.
are deciding on a standard.
Sure.
put it in the knowledge base.
Yeah,
We just
we'll talk
did.
to Automata. Well, I think we should try to put this in PIP 4, but we just have to discuss it more, and obviously it has to be voted on. Like, there's a process to do that. It's not just us coming up with the process and just throwing it in there. We can't even do that. So we can put it in the knowledge base, and then we can have a little
Done.
bit of accountability if people don't just copy and paste it, because it's why wouldn't they?
Right.
But we
All
can't
right.
add it
Moving
into
on.
PIP 4 right now, anyways. You know.
Move on. Move on. We're done.
Yeah.
Okay. Yay.
The
All right,
wait.
so the conversation from last week was about the refresh pip, and the one that we want to get back to was the funding rules. All right. So funding rules refresh is that the payment from the ecosystem shall only be made through the proposal process described in this pip. No pip may exceed 8 million Atlas, which is approximately 5% of the initial 159 million Atlas, rounded to the nearest whole number. That number from PIP 4 was originally 5% of the ecosystem fund, but due to complexity in the calculation and difficulty in applying the number, a simpler method was developed. And that's where we started talking about should it be 5% of the initial funded amount or 5% of the current balance?
The top-up review, isn't it?
Hmm?
5% of the last top-up review.
That's
Yeah.
what we didn't decide on when we left last week.
Oh, okay. That I think I had a migraine or something.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
So we think 5% of the current balance?
That's what we're
Is
doing
that-
right now.
Is
That's how
that
it's
what
being done.
you? Right, is that how you understand it, Bodhi? You're more in the weeds in this than most of us.
So before passing the ball to Bodhi,
Okay.
the way I understood when we do that review, that is pretty much quarterly, we have the vault, we have the ecosystem fund, and we sum those two, and then we calculate 20% of that, and that's the amount we should have in the vault. And we top up so it matches that amount, and then that will give us the 5% of that amount is what's going to give us that the number that we will work with until the next top up.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is if there are pips that have been approved, but maybe it hasn't been sent out yet, like maybe there's a milestone type pip, then that adds a little bit of nuance to this equation because, like you said, you're adding what's in the ecosystem fund at that time to what's in the treasury, and you're taking 20% of that. But what if there's already, a good chunk of that ecosystem fund is already kind of spoken for through pips that haven't been paid out yet due to milestones or whatever the case may be. Like I said, that adds a little bit of nuance, but in general, that's what you said is totally, yeah, that's right.
Okay, so there's option A, no ecosystem fund pip may exceed 8 million, which is 5% of the initial funding amount, But then now option B is no ecosystem fund PIP may exceed 5% of the quarterly reassessment, or the,
Yeah,
what is it? Quarterly
yeah, that
continuous
sounds
funding.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, the option A is just not accurate at all. That was the first. That
Well,
was the
it's been
initial.
accurate this whole time when we say 10,000. I know you said that you don't like that, but that's what we've been going off of.
Because
Well,
they didn't do a
that,
top off forever until recently, that
Right,
when
right,
they
right,
actually
right.
put a gun in their head.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
well, 8 million was for the initial fill.
Yes.
But since we topped it up, now it's over 10 million, Atlas.
Okay, so then no ecosystem fund may exceed 5% of the, I'm not gonna say quarterly because it could change, continuously, or of the, what, transaction date of the last continuous funding, I don't know, event. What is this thing called?
Refresh or
Top up.
refill.
Ecosystem fund.
Refill, top up, replenishment. Use every word.
You can choose one and leave just one, but
I think
Exceed
refill is kind of the verbiage I've been hearing.
transaction. What word did I use? I used replenished.
Last quarterly, I would change the continuous to quarterly
Mm.
or whatever.
yeah, but he's right that we don't have a precedent to time it yet.
Yeah.
Oh,
In
right,
our
right,
May
right.
minds.
Okay.
exceed 5% of the
It's been done foreverly so far.
last continuous funding transaction.
It would
Okay.
be like the resulting total after,
Maybe of the balance, right? So,
yes. Yeah.
okay, so where is it? It's the CUW, right? Shoot, I already forgot. Which one is the wallet? It's the here it is. It's the BXK one. All right, so when a transaction happens, you showed us this last time, Bodhi. So when a transaction,
It's transfer.
yeah,
Transfer
transfer,
tab.
and then you go to
And
that
then in.
transaction, and then token balance change, and here we are. So
Well,
balance before, balance after.
did you go to the top transaction or the one that got refilled?
Uh,
Go back really quick.
huh? Yeah, I went to this
So
87 million one.
okay, yeah, exactly.
So it's the KK. KKCQ. Okay, it's in token balance change. So the balance after, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the PIP's gonna have to account for both USDC and Atlas in its verbiage. So no ecosystem fund PIP may exceed 5% of the balance after.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Of
reads
the
well.
last continuous funding transaction. All right, so I'm gonna put an example because we're gonna us or future us are gonna argue about what we meant.
Probably, because that's the way this goes.
Okay, so as for example, in the which one was it? It was July. In the July 2025 continuous funding transaction, a refill of 18 million, right? Well, 87 million. 87 million Atlas. Okay. The balance before, and I'm going to put link. transaction.
Whose hot mic is it?
It's probably Bodhi.
Where is it, Brian? Bodhi's muted.
Oh, is he? I'm sorry,
It might
Bodhi.
be from Brian.
I accused you.
Okay.
Thank you.
87 million was refilled. The balance before was this number. And the balance after
It was the lower one.
was...
That's the main treasury. It's the 136.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Good catch. And the balance after was 224.
Man,
Okay.
thank God they only send round numbers to the ecosystem fund, bro. Oh my gosh.
Okay. The balance after of 224 million Atlas is what the new 5% ecosystem fund limitation, right? Limitation
Yeah.
is calculated from. Do we all agree with that?
Yep.
Carlos, agree?
And sorry, just waking up. What? Yes, yes, yes. yes.
Jesus.
Okay. All right. Let's try it.
I would,
Let's start off
and
from
then
the
I would
beginning.
just say
Okay.
the same approves for USDC. The same applies.
And this had this been a USDC transaction, the same would apply. Okay. All right. So no ecosystem fund may exceed 5% of the balance after of the last continuous funding transaction. Gosh darn it. Of the last continuous funding transaction. For example, in the July 2025 continuous funding transaction, I give the transaction ID so people can look at it. 87 million Atlas was refilled. The balance before was 136 million and the balance after was 224 million. The balance after of 224 million is what the new 5% ecosystem funding limitation is calculated from. That. Do you agree, Carlos? Understand?
Yes, and that number will not change until the next refill, until
Yes.
next revision.
That number will change at the next refill.
Not next, subsequent refills.
Why is next the wrong word?
Just sounds.
Next means after.
Yeah,
Subsequent is
just
nice and wordy, but it's, I don't know,
All
I
future.
don't know. It just felt like a better word.
a future.
I
Subsequent's
would write
fine.
it as.
It's just
I
legalese.
think it would be more to the point if it said that the 5% limit, or like the maximum like limit won't change until the next
Yeah, will not change
5%.
until
Yeah.
Because
The five.
what is important here, is that that number doesn't start depleting at the same speed of the vault of the ecosystem.
All right, so what am I writing?
We expect that number until
The
the next refill.
The 5% limitation will not change until the next or whatever. The 5% limit will not change.
So no, so the 5% limit never changes. It's the number that we calculate using the 5%.
Yes, that number once you achieve that number on a top off, that number doesn't change until the next top off.
Okay,
Yeah,
so the
that's what we're trying
number
to write.
calculated from, man, no, that just makes it weird.
Don't you have AI?
Yeah, sorry about my legalese. I've been reading over my leases because I'm suing one of my tenants, so my apologies.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I have a tendency to do that too because I'm a contracts person, but I don't know. I'm just in a mood now where I want to make it as simple as possible. So the 5% limit for 224 is 11 million Atlas. All right, so the 5% limit 5% of 24.4 million is this number. Okay. And then here we go. This is the new limit until the next refill.
Perfect. Beautiful. Simple. Magic.
All right, so here's something I didn't realize as I was saying that. That only accounts for the Atlas. If there's a USDC transaction, then that transaction, that before balance, is going to be in USDC, isn't it?
Yeah, but remember that we only get to use funds over the 500,000 limit,
Yeah.
minimum.
But I mean, if they give us a top up of 1,000 Atlas, or I'm not dang it, 1,000 USDC, then this balance after is just going to be 1,000 Atlas, and it won't take into account the 224 million Atlas, right?
I think you just misspoke. You were talking about USDC and then you switched to
Right.
Atlas. I could
So
be
this
wrong.
right here doesn't show the Atlas balance at all. So if the next refill transaction is $50,000 in USDC, then that balance
Mhm.
after is just going to show USDC for the next transaction,
Right.
and it won't show the
Right.
224 million Atlas.
Right. It has nothing to do with Atlas, the
Right.
USDC.
But the 5% takes into account the entirety of the portfolio, right? Not just Atlas or
Mm,
USDC only.
sorta. I mean, yes, but
Sorta.
they're but they're separate. They're treated separate. So
So if this was USDC,
mm,
1,000 USDC, the 5% limit
right.
would be this number plus this number, 5% of that combined value. Can we
Well,
agree
no,
on
it
that?
would be the 5% of one number and the 5% of the other number. They will always be treated like two different entities, I think.
Yeah.
No. Wait, what? So they
Uh,
can you can only ask for 5% of the USDC token in the
that's a
account or Atlas?
I mean, when you do the top off and you calculate this is the amount of Atlas you can request and this is the amount of USDC you can request. If we have, 500,000 USDC, you can request 5% of that.
So we're treating those as two separate wallets, two separate accounts of
Because they
5%?
get funded differently and they mean different things, I think we should. But,
Well,
If
isn't that the
well,
someone
way
think
it's
think about this. If somebody requests $10,000, there's only $10,000 USDC, and they just say, okay, well, I want it all in USDC because that's 10%. They're taking the entire USDC portion, which isn't necessarily fair to other people who might want USDC. So I think that it should be 5% of each token. Specifically
mm,
for that reason, if no
that
other reason.
just that creates like a wild west of who's looking at the wallet whenever they do the PIP.
yeah, right
No,
now
you'd have to do that either
right
way.
now we're only paying in Atlas.
until yeah.
Well, so
Okay. The way it
either
reads
way,
right
we're
now,
gonna.
it's 5% of all of it. That's the way it reads right now. Of the entire balance.
Yeah, but then, like I said, I personally, I definitely think it should be separated because in the beginning, there's not going to be as much USDC, and the first person that says I want the USDC is going to take all of it.
Yeah, but
And then
think
you
the
just convert.
foundation will like the flexibility to have a say on how that is distributed, at the end of the day. Some strategic decision there.
long
Okay.
term, yeah, I think once there's a ton of USDC and a ton of Atlas, and people can pick and choose. But right now, if we give people the option to pick and choose, the first person who picks that USDC is going to take it all.
And you know why they can pick and choose? Because we didn't say what the rule is. That's why.
Because there's not a rule because
Mm,
there hasn't been a case. But when a case arises, we discuss it with Automata and see how they want to proceed, and then we
Why would
Well, I
we
think
say
wait
how
for the
they
case
want.
to hit us instead of establishing the rule now?
yeah, we should run it by
But we
Automata,
could
see
do
what they
that about
think, and
we
then
could do
throw it in
that
there.
endlessly for
Yes, we
everything
could.
instead
Let's
of
just run it
waiting
by
for
Automata.
the
Put
moment
it,
and
put
see
it.
what makes sense at that moment instead of trying to predict what is going to make sense in a year from now.
No, man, no. You put the rule in here so we know what the answer is up front, not have to spend a couple hours every other week to talk about it because if someone decided to put in a new number for their PIP.
Well, and
I think
we're
this is
already going through the
probably
process. We're already going through the process of reintroducing this PIP. So I think we should like this is a pretty low hanging fruit as far as like accounting for
Yeah, I
making
agree.
it future proof.
yeah, I would probably agree too. Sorry, Drum.
Well, I say we just talk to Automata, see what they think, and then I mean, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure they're going to suggest that it be split, at least initially, because like I said, the USDC coming in is like $1,000 a month right now. So one person's going to be able to take a year's worth. One person with a $10,000 budget, which is basically kind of what people can get right now, would take a year's worth of USDC.
Yeah, well, I
Which
mean, if someone wants USDC right now, we would swap it, right? We would
No,
swap
well,
the
they
Atlas.
would swap it.
we're
They
not
would
doing
swap it,
shit.
but
Oh,
then
we would
nobody
pay
else would have that
Atlas?
option. Yeah,
Okay.
but then nobody else would have that option. If the first person that came in took a year's worth of USDC because the DAO doesn't make a lot of USDC because we gave them that option, and then now everybody else who wants USDC is going to have to swap it and eat the slippage, and the fees. That's not fair to them.
Oh, I see. Wait, is it in the rules right now, or is it in our knowledge base that only paid in Atlas?
It's in the PIP 4. It says only once the DAO hits 400,000 USDC does any amount spill over to the ecosystem fund.
Yeah, that's just the funding rule. What is the payment rule?
No,
If there was one, it would be in PIP 4, but I doubt there is.
Yeah, I
No, I
don't
think
we
that
remember
have
was just
reading.
the
something
feedback we
somewhere.
got from the foundation. This is how we're doing things right now, and that's pretty much it.
I don't know
The
where
cost
it's
of
at.
office in Atlas, we're paying in Atlas. It's just very simple.
It's not simple if it's not written down. That's what I'm asking.
It's written down somewhere. Do we even? I know this has been
Oh, it was right
answered.
there. No more than 5% of the initial budget may be awarded to a single PIP to a single recipient, right at the bottom of the page. It's not specified. The
Okay,
distinction between USDC and Atlas.
so
So
then it's
let's just
yeah, it's
curb it
only a
for
matter
now.
of
Talk to
time.
Automata. Yeah, we got time to figure this one out. But we should definitely figure it out before we go through the entire process of pushing this to a vote, because it would suck to have to redo this entire thing just for that. Which the first time it happens, the first time somebody takes all of the USDC in the ecosystem fund, because the ecosystem fund hardly makes any. I mean,
You just swap more, right? You just swap.
we
It's not
can't
like
swap.
We don't swap.
yeah, Automata would swap it if the PIP required that they be paid in USDC.
No,
No,
that was at one of our meetings.
they
That's
definitely
probably not
won't do
written
that.
down, but
They won't
that was
swap.
decided at one of them. No.
Oh,
No. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
swapping.
problem.
Once you start swapping, you start getting into unknown realms on crap with a regulation, and they
okay.
just they
Then this
we
is
have a
how
we
easy
have
this
an
is.
Atlas paying in Atlas.
Payment will only
And
be
then,
made in Atlas, and then that's it.
Well,
and then when we had
Problem
USDC, we're
solved.
gonna pay up to 5% of the USDC we have, so nobody's gonna be able to abuse that. I just think that makes sense. It's just common sense of the way that it's structured right now.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah,
if
I
it's going
think
to be only made in Atlas, then the rest of this is fine. Then no more questions. And that one goes away because USDC is not factored into the 5% anymore. It's just
it
Atlas.
is. It is. Once
Yeah.
once the DAO goes over $500,000 USDC,
Oh, that's right, because
20%
you're
of
treating it
that
as a separate
balance
account.
over.
All right.
Yeah. We definitely
I
need
think
to
I think the
figure
way
it
you
out.
have it written is perfect, but I think we should verify that with Automata that that's how they want it to be.
This has to all to be verified with Automata because it's governance.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we
But
got it. Atlas and USDC are treated as separate accounts.
Yeah.
The
Independent.
5%
Yeah.
limit applies to them separately.
By the way, does that make sense? Do you all agree and understand why that's probably simpler, and that avoids the other problems that you guys were talking about?
yeah,
Oh yeah,
I
I
don't
agree with that.
necessarily know that it's simpler, but it definitely is cleaner.
It's not simpler, but it is cleaner. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it is the solution to that problem.
Yeah, if payment is
But
only made in Atlas, then no ecosystem fund pip may exceed 5% of the balance after. We're only looking at the Atlas balance after. Okay, the obvious question is if payment's only made in Atlas, why are we even calculating a 5% USDC?
for
Payments aren't
future,
only made in Atlas.
that's all we have right now. But
What do you mean payment's not only? You just talked to me about how there's a security problem if we have to swap and all that jazz.
No,
Because
just
the
currently,
ecosystem fund will eventually have USDC in it. It doesn't
right? We just
currently.
don't.
It doesn't currently. So right now we can only make Atlas payments because not because we can only pay in Atlas because there is no USDC. If we had USDC, then we could pay in USDC.
which is different than exchanging Atlas to USDC to pay on USDC.
Right.
Correct.
So just take that first part out.
This
Yeah.
is not. This is not. Oh my gosh. It sounds like this is way more complicated than it's got to needs to be. Why are they separate?
Because we can't
Because they're
swap.
separate tokens. They come into the treasury separately. The DAO makes like $30 to $40,000 in Atlas every month, and then the DAO makes $1,000 in USDC. They come from different places. The amount that we get is very different. The implications, like most people, unfortunately at this stage, most people are looking for dollars. So if we just say,
The
okay, you
demand.
can have USDC as much as you want until it's gone, then that whole 5% rule kind of goes thrown out the window for the USDC in the short term because the DAO hardly makes any USDC. So the
Yeah,
ecosystem fund would get even less, and it would
but
get
now,
drained immediately.
well, now we're just waiting for a sniper to wait for USDC to come in and then put in an ecosystem fund pip for USDC.
The way that
5%
it's
of it.
written,
Only
the way
5%
that
of it.
it's
Sure.
the way that
That's
it's
why,
written now prevents that. The way that you have it
yeah,
written right
that's
now
why we're
prevents that.
treating them separately to solve that problem.
Exactly.
And it's very simple. You know, there are two different numbers, two different lines in the thing. It's just, it's very easy.
It's not. No, it's not.
The way
The
the
only
way that it's written right now prevents what you just said. It prevents the sniping. That is the reason that
no,
it's
no, it
written.
doesn't. If I look at this balance in wallet and I see a USDC transaction, I know I can now calculate 5% of that USDC, snipe it with a pip.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just like
but
you did
you
with
can't.
Atlas.
Yeah, you can only take 5% of it. That's not really a snipe. That's fine. You can take 5% of the balance of USDC in the ecosystem fund.
Bodhi, I don't see how
That's
you think that's fine.
What's the problem?
Yeah.
20 people could do that. It's the exact same as the Atlas.
Because you've got two separate accounts, and not everyone's going to know that you've got two separate 5% budgets that you can be applying for. How would anyone
That's what
know
it
that
says right
except for
there.
us? Dude,
They are in conversation with us for weeks when they have a PIP.
it doesn't mean that we explain to them the funding rule every single time.
They
We
are
hardly
asking
ever
for a
explain.
number in USDC, and you tell them we can only
I,
give you up to $700 in USDC because that's the 5% of the amount we have right now in the ecosystem vault. You can.
So then we're going
I'm
to,
failing to
and
see the
that,
problem.
the problem is that we're not specifying what the pips are entitled to, the pip authors can apply for. We're putting it on them to calculate each wallet's balance and then decide whether they want 700 USDC or 10 million Atlas.
Or 10 million Atlas and 700 USDC. It could be also that.
Mhm.
What do you mean it could be also? They could be both?
Yeah,
As
because
long
that
as
would
it
be five.
doesn't.
That would
That
be
would
5%
be
Yeah.
still,
I
right?
could do a pip for 5% of Atlas and 5% of USDC.
Yeah, how
that
is
would
that
still be
different from doing
5%
a
of
PIP
the
for the whole
ecosystem fund.
content of the vault?
That would be 5% of the ecosystem fund. What you just said,
Yeah.
5% of the USDC and 5% of the Atlas
No,
would
that
be
would be
literally
more.
5% of the.
That would
No, it's not.
mathematically be more than 5% of the
No.
ecosystem fund.
Are
It
you
What?
wouldn't.
sure?
What?
It
If you have
definitely. It
$100,
definitely.
if you have $100 in Atlas and $100 in USDC, what's the 5% of the vault? 5% of $200, isn't it? And if you calculate it separate and you only get, you know, from one and the other, is the same amount as well.
Oh.
I don't see why you want to invite this pain on us.
Well, the alternative is that you don't specify, and then the first person that requests USDC is going to take it all,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then everybody else is going to be limited to Atlas,
The
which is pretty
specification would
shitty.
be
It's
that
fair access to the vault tokens. That's all. In the same way that it is designed and is approved in the PIP, which is 5%.
Well, the PIP does not really clarify between the Atlas and USDC, but I think
no, it
that
does
One,
not.
be the
one
way that
side
it
or the
is.
other. It doesn't restrict either. The only way not to interpret that way if we want to create the problem of someone sniping the whole amount.
Okay. All right.
This is a good conversation to have, to be honest.
It
It's
feels
better
like
to hash this out now.
it feels like we just invited a ton of pain and suffering for no reason.
All right, correct me if
What's the
I'm wrong,
pain point?
Lander. To me, it looks like we have two options only. Am I missing something?
I agree. I see two options.
I see two options. Or treat it as a whole, combining both assets, or treat it as separate. Am I missing a third option?
Yeah, locking one of them out.
Yeah, that's a valid option until a certain point. I mean, that's another thing too. If there's like $1,000 in the ecosystem fund USDC, like what's the point? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
if we
like
That's
have $1
why
million in USDC in 5 years, that's locked and that cannot be used because we didn't want to use a
well,
calculator.
maybe it would be. I mean, it's kind of throwing a curveball here, but to speak to Lancer's point, maybe it would be
And we're going to have sync
advantageous
in
to
the future.
say,
We're going to have a lot of sync as well. What are we going to do with that? We're going to calculate it and then we're going to just pay it in USDC for the 5% of sync plus the 5%. I mean, this is insane if we treat it all as one asset. This is 3 different tokens, which is 3 different worlds in crypto.
well, no, I'm speaking to Lancer's point about locking the USDC out. I think a way that we could do that hypothetically would be to say until it gets to
A certain
well,
dollar
so
amount.
what's 20% of it? So the way that PIP 4 is written right now is after the DAO gets above 500,000, that any amount over that 20%. So if there's like $510,000, you're pulling in what is that, like
20% of 10,000.
2 grand?
Yes.
You're pulling in 2 grand, and then you're gonna say, okay, you can have 5% of 2 grand. It's like there's 0 point to even being able to do that.
Yeah, because
So
we don't have almost USDC, so you shouldn't be requesting because we're very limited. So you are limited as well. It makes sense.
Why would we let them
Until
request USDC at all?
we
until
have
there's
a whole bunch
50,000 or
of
something.
Because we could have hundreds of thousands in the future.
That's
Like,
why
Yeah,
imagine
we
there's a book deal and something goes well.
well, yeah. So let's say
or
we could write
C4
it like
comes out
that.
and we attract a whole bunch of people and they start buying crew cards and
And then we're going to
components
come
and
to
halves
change
and
PIP4 to allow now to use the USDC that was pretty
Well,
much included in the first
Yeah,
one.
okay, I
we
see
could have
that.
it.
I see
We could
that.
have it baked in. We could have it baked in to say, USDC is inapplicable until the balance gets over $50,000 USDC in the ecosystem fund. For example, you could have it baked in.
But
the
why are we
10,000.
going to start pulling again numbers out of our ass with something that just came out
Oh.
in our mind? What if we like it's just the 5% of the thing, and
Okay,
if you
well,
have 3 tokens, it's the 5%
then
of PIP?
we have to
Because
assume
tomorrow
that
we may have $10 million extra tomorrow, next week, $10 million
we
extra
have
dollars in sync. And then we're going to calculate what? The 5%, the 20% taken in account into the sync, and we're going to pay it in USDC and Atlas, or no, each one should be separate because they're going to have a completely
it
different
is.
impact on the vault.
That's what we're saying. We're not arguing that. The argument is if only $5,000 goes into the ecosystem fund, why would we even be doing? Why would we even be entertaining the idea of trying to divvy up 5% of a couple grand? It makes sense to a point to not even have, like Lancer's brought up, a third option, and I think it's a valid option of like blocking that out. But obviously, like you said, at some point it shouldn't be blocked, and you wouldn't want to have to go rewrite the PIP, so you could have it baked in to where anywhere between 0 and or
Who are we
up
to
to,
block a section of our DAO's vault?
because
We're the
think
council.
about
That's what we are.
We're no one,
well,
exactly. That's my
We're
that you
we're
asked for.
elected council members that are
That
stewards
means
of.
shit.
It doesn't mean shit. We have. What are you talking about, man? What are you talking
We
about?
are not here to make up
this
govern. Okay.
It doesn't matter. We're writing a PIP, and if it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We're not making any changes. We're presenting a PIP,
Right.
which is a valid thing to do.
And it's going
So
to
what
vote
we could
after.
write in there anything, and if it doesn't matter what it is, if it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass, and that's valid.
I'll start
So,
writing whatever then.
well, no, I think it doesn't make sense to entertain micro transactions of USDC just because they can, which if you don't limit it, then it is a valid request.
And you're free to give that feedback on the review of the PIP. Like, dude, there's
I
only
think if
2,000
we
USDC. Like, no, we're only
right now
paying
there's
right now.
only 5,000, and 5% of 5,000 isn't a lot of money, but it's still the PIP says, and here's what everything comes down to: intention. What's the intention of the original PIP?
It's 5% of the whole
It's
balance.
right.
Is
So they
everyone's
can, if
money.
somebody wants to request 5% of the ecosystem fund, they're asking for 5% of the ecosystem fund. If it
Yes.
happens to be $2.50 worth of USDC that they ask for, so
That's
be
it.
it. It's annoying, but whatever. And my hope is all of this is completely pointless because we're going to grow. That's the intention. We're going to grow. And so just leave it as 5% of the Atlas, 5% of USDC, which is the ecosystem fund. And Bob's your uncle. It's done.
When someone does a PIP for this marketing merch, okay? If this
Mhm.
said, we want, I mean, it's in euros, right? So that might as well be USDC. They want 5775 euros. All right, they didn't put Atlas. So how did we convert that or translate it?
I calculate the amount at the day of disbursement. So I go through the whole wallet verification. I check, we check the receipts. Once we're ready to go, I go over to CoinGecko because it doesn't include slippage. It's just a live price. I switch it to euro and I type in the amount of euros they ask, and it tells me the exact amount of Atlas that's worth. And it's aggregating like all of the biggest exchanges and dexes, I believe. It's definitely accurate. It's CoinGecko, so it's pretty spot on.
Yeah,
And then I
okay.
send that number over. So I
Okay.
send the Atlas number over, and then they send the Atlas.
So we did a conversion in Atlas the day of payment, was it?
The day of request.
Day of request. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Day of request. Not the day that it was approved, but the day they requested the Atlas.
The day that
euro.
the day I send so I calculate the total, and then I send that to the team and say this much to this wallet. I send them the link to the wallet verification, so they're not just taking my word for it, like where to send the money. And then there is a period of time between me sending that message and them actually initiating and fulfilling the multi-sig and sending it to them.
Okay. So would it be then that we should require that they give us a PIP in Atlas and pay it in Atlas?
That would probably
No,
be, well,
we've already kind of
that
hashed that over, but I don't think that that's necessary at this point.
No, Automata's answer to that is that when you're dealing with bills in USDC, you need more or less an assurance of what you're going to need to pay, and it's fine to do the reference. They will be paid in Atlas, and the conversion will do the moment that the payment is sent, and they are fine assuming whatever small losses they might be for volatility. But that's fine because that helps that makes it easy for people to use the system, and that's fine. We want that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an issue. We cannot pay them in euros, of course, but we can give them an Atlas amount equivalent to that amount in euros when the payment is made.
So we will have a USDC, which is one of 500, 1,000 currencies in the world. And for if they do it
That
in
was
euros, then it's always going to be, if it's always going to be an Atlas for non-USDC requested amounts, then we're only really talking about,
well.
oh
So
man.
then, what we should do is we should specify that it should either be
But that's circumstantial. That's the preference now, is because we have a lot of Atlas. We don't have any USDC, but maybe in the future we have a lot of USDC and not that much Atlas in comparison, and we're fine paying in USDC. So why do we want
Yeah,
to legislate this into the core of the government structure instead of just remaining flexible there?
because right now
Well,
it's a
I get what you're saying about national currencies, euros and stuff like that. I think it might be worth specifying that your PIP has to be denominated in either USD or Atlas.
We don't know
So
what the
if
DAO will hold in the future. Like right now, we have only Atlas, and we will have a little bit of USDC. Then we're going to have Sync. Maybe someday we're going to have Polis. Maybe someday we have something else out of another, deal.
We got some Costco hot
That's the
dog in there.
then you're going into specifics and details when you're just theory crafting that I don't like about theory crafting. And that's why I wait for the situations to come and then come to a logic answer to that situation. And you're better suited to just pull a thing out of our ass. Like it's just if every time we have a few people in a video conference chat, there's going to be a lot of brilliant ideas coming out and numbers that things that people think, but that doesn't need to translate to governance every time. I don't think that's how governance is made.
well, PIP4 only accounts for USDC and Atlas. It doesn't account for any other token. So if another token were to be introduced, PIP4 would have to be rewritten anyway. So I don't see any problem with saying that they need to do that calculation from their currency to USD. Or if they want Atlas, they can do Atlas personally. But honestly, it's not an issue either for them to request euros or whatever, because you just calculate it at the time of payment anyways.
Okay, so right now an ecosystem fund PIP may request what's the section called? It's the cost section, right? Cost and resource allocation. Okay. So right now an ecosystem fund PIP may be requested in any currency. All right, so that's section 8, cost resource allocation. But we're willing to pay in Atlas or USDC. We don't have at USDC right now, so that's moot, but we could in the future.
It
And
should
any
be. There should be a specification here, because I've ran into this issue where somebody requested USD or USDC, and you could have the same argument if somebody requested euros, for example. And then when we said, okay, we're going to send you some Atlas, they're like, wait a second, I requested USD. So there should be a specification which says that you have to denominate your payment. You can request 1,000 euros or 1,000 Swiss francs or whatever, but that payment has to be denominated in the tokens that are available, either in Atlas or USDC. You can't, because that has been a point of confusion, and it actually did cost the DAO some money because we had to kind of make up for that a little bit. But yeah, that is an important specification, that it has to be denominated in the tokens that are available.
Well, then that leaves it in Costco hot dog, and then like Icy saying zinc.
Okay, well then Atlas and USDC, because again, PIP4 only accounts for Atlas and USDC. So we could say you can request whatever in whatever currency you want, but it has to be denominated in Atlas or USDC. So you can say I want 1,000 euros worth of Atlas or USDC, or a combination of both, or whatever.
Okay, so an ecosystem fund may request any currency in Section 8 cost and resource allocation. The ecosystem fund will only pay in Atlas or USDC. An ecosystem fund PIP may request 5% of Atlas or USDC or both. And then we've got the example of how we calculate it.
Yeah, I would add the word denomination somewhere in there. I would say it needs to be denominated in those currencies.
That's the same thing as request.
Okay.
Okay, well, at least we've got it written down. I think that's probably my bigger issue. We can argue about whether or not it should be all of it or whatever, as long as we write the rule down and we stop like this patty cake of what is the day's sentiment, then okay.
Just to be a pain in the ass, is this true that we can request in any currency? So can someone make a pip and request in rupees?
It's
And we're gonna
definitely true
be
now because they're just requesting a euro.
no, I know, but I wanted to open this can.
Oh, I mean,
I wouldn't mind.
Thanks.
can they request peso? Can they request
When
I
it's
mean,
not
Omani
I
money,
wouldn't.
Real?
I wouldn't mind them because I mean, at some point, somebody's gonna be like, "I want like an ounce of gold or something." You know what I mean? It's like, so
on a bottle of
I wouldn't
rum.
mind. I wouldn't mind it being, that you need to do your calculation and tell us if you want like a stable, if you want like a fiat currency, like more stable coin, make it a USDC value and tell us that, but then you can denominate it in Atlas if that's the token that's available. I would like to have it say USD or Atlas, and then it has to be denominated in USDC or Atlas.
I mean, I'm okay either way. I just know that the volatility in some countries might be as wild as the crypto, and then if we start dealing with those payments, dealing with those, both volatility at the same time, it might be a hole that we are jumping into.
True. So
Yeah.
if we get a pip in peso, are we going to do the same thing as we just did for the euro?
I, I think there's a few tokens that are, strong enough, I guess.
No, I mean
I
if this next one comes from pesos, are we going to do the same conversion? We got to, right? Unless
yeah.
we
Yeah.
require. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see it as an issue. I mean, it's kind of a funny idea hypothetically that somebody would request, some obscure currency, but in general it shouldn't be an issue. So I think we
Well,
should kind of approach
pe
with that idea.
peso is the national currency for Mexico. So the only reason we
But
got
how
by with the
volatile is it though?
I mean, it's as volatile as any country's currency can be.
Well,
Depend.
I mean,
That's an open question. Any country's currency has their own volatility rate. I mean, at this point, all we need to do is what is the rule? Are we going to accept?
I
Because right
think that
now we've
question
got
for
an
recommendation if they don't mind, and in my experience, they are very accommodating. If they have to go to Google and they do a conversion in the moment they send, they will.
but it's not them doing it. It's Bodhi doing it. So what do
Yeah, I
we?
mean, as
Same
long as
Google
it's
though.
not, I mean, as long as it's not something like super obscure, like somebody brought up the example of a cow, like I want 6 cows worth of Atlas or something, you know what I mean? Like generally people, so generally I don't think it's an issue, like if it's any global currency, it's fine. You know what I mean? Like the odds of them hitting hyperinflation or some shit is like that could happen to like anyone, you know what I mean? That requires
Right.
a completely different approach to solve that problem. I think requires like a exit clause basically type
Put a
scenario.
note. If I don't know how to spell your coin from my mind, it's gonna be in USDC.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
COW.
4 million yen. I'm requesting 4 million yen for the development of.
Okay, I'm gonna put within reason. All right, and then I'm gonna put it is not reasonable to request in cows and in
That's the
livestock
only
or
limitation.
other consumable. I'm dead serious because we are opening the door to, well, in my country we don't deal in like any specific like paper currency and then
Yeah,
gold and
texting minutes. Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Okay, fine. I think it's getting really ridiculous, but at this point, like the thing's wide open. What are we gonna do when we get one from a non euro someone like British pounds? We'll have to do the same thing for them. We'll need to do the
Yeah,
same thing
it's
for the
that
Chinese
that's fine.
yuan.
Well, a lot of these token aggregators like Coin Market Cap and CoinGecko, they have a section where you can just change the currency on the front end, just like you can change the language of a website. It just automatically takes that into account, and you can just look up the yen or euro or British pound or whatever to Atlas conversion. It's like 2 clicks, so it's not a big deal as long as it's on that list. So I think maybe if you're gonna say anything, just be like, don't make it an obscure like like a globally traded currency or a forex currency is fine. You know what I
That's
mean?
your thing. All right, got it. All right, so are we agreed that Ecosystem Fund will only pay in Atlas or USDC?
Yeah, it has to be denominated in those tokens.
All right, so if we do end up getting like, I don't know, the stable coin for Euro, we're gonna have to rewrite this.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be written anyways because this doesn't take into account anything other than
Yeah.
Atlas USDC.
Okay.
So
Are
that's
we
fine.
agreed an ecosystem fund right now may request 5% of Atlas or USDC or both?
Yeah.
Okay. So I
Oh
guess that would
fuck!
mean that
Did you really throw in the or both? Son of
well
a bitch.
That's true.
that's what y'all have been saying to me. So I had to throw it in,
I know. I know.
right? So right
I
now anyone
know.
who's requesting 5% Atlas is actually less than 5% ecosystem fund, right?
Right. Because it's
Well,
done
yeah.
calculating in the
Do we have any
USDC.
USDC right now?
We don't.
We have a little.
You're
We don't
right.
have any.
You're right.
So they are
No,
not.
we're at 481,000,
Yeah,
so
you're
we're
all right. You got me.
$19,000 off.
You got me,
We have
Carlos.
$0 in the actual ecosystem fund though of USDC.
All right.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So
But
then
if
let's
we
just
had
go over this.
$7, that means
Let's go over this one more time, and then if this is agreed, then I'd say we're pretty well on the good path. No ecosystem fund PIP may exceed 5% of the balance after of the last continuous funding transaction. Man, that's so clunky.
continuous
Atlas and
frontier.
Atlas
Why
and
do we have to
USDC
put
are
it there?
treated as separate accounts. The 5% limit is calculated separately and applies to them separately. For example, the transaction, this ID, 87 million Atlas was refilled. The balance before was 136. The balance after was 224. The balance after the 224 is the new 5% ecosystem fund limitation. 5% of 224 is 11 million Atlas. This is the new limit until the next refill transaction. What do y'all think?
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then had this been a USDC transaction, the same would apply. Okay. And then we get into no fund may exceed 12 months. And then I added here at the bottom, any buffer top up approved is not paid up front. Do we want to strike that or keep it?
I would. I think that's just nice at this level of governance, which is the fun, the foundational.
Emperor, what say you? Strike or keep?
Strike is my opinion.
Yep.
Why would we strike it?
Because we are not a buffer top up is not a system that we have in place for all pips. This
Oh,
was
because
just
we're just putting it in the
Yeah,
knowledge base.
we're putting it in because of this
Yeah, I know.
recent
Okay.
situation.
Yeah, just
If
strike
you
it
include
since
it,
it's
you have to define it, is what I would
right.
say.
Yeah,
correct. You would
just
have to
take it
create
out.
the whole system, and
Well, I
now
had
we
it defined, but y'all didn't like it.
No, I think, well, personally, my opinion is that we should
That's your
add it into the
fault.
knowledge. I think we should
That's
add
Yeah,
it
true.
into the knowledge base right now,
That's
but I
true.
think before we push this PIP 4 that you're rewriting to a vote, I think that ideally we should include that with
Yeah.
specific verbiage.
All right, I struck it.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that was it. We need to get some clarification from Automata, but now the next step is to put this whole thing in front of them, so that'll be that. All right, donezo. Pip X, the return of Pip X.
That's just
Refresh.
remember that
PTSD.
10% pop off is anecdotal experiment of only one pip so far. So this is not the standard procedure. That's why we need to go into a standardization of it.
Well, I think, my opinion, to throw a grenade in at the last minute, we never do that friggin' 10% bullshit ever again.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea. I do feel for them.
Jesus.
Okay. All right. I'm good on this. I want to close it out.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And we can do the high impact pip next week, Carlos.
Yeah, there's no rush for that. That's a whole that.
Yeah, I didn't get to read it, but I really like the idea of it. It sounds like this is going to replace my pip 1 refresh, maybe. can't fully tell yet. Sounds like you're putting the comprehensive pip in the governance
Well,
format.
the comprehensive P was a Frankenstein to allow ideas beyond the limits of the ecosystem fund to work in steps, right? And still give, instead of creating a loophole, we create a structure so we can follow it up and people can, vote with, more informed decisions. This is just for those big pips that are going to require a lot more scrutiny and transparency and discussion and that are way beyond and need to be approved by Automata first or brought in by Automata first.
Yeah. All right, I'm ready to close. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to go over?
No, if anyone's
just hopped
looking
in,
for
but
more
good job.
details,
Good work.
just search for Star Atlas Pip X on YouTube for what we're
Oh, yeah.
discussing.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
It was awesome. I
PTSD.
highly endorse it.
Oh, jeez.
That was one of the first things I watched.
It's
I
a
had
great
a lot
of
example
fun
of
tracking
Star
the pip.
Atlas governance.
I didn't know anyone from anything, but it was still cool to watch at the time.
We,
All right,
by the way,
let's
we
close.
almost broke our limit for being in this channel. I think we had 18 or 19 people at one point.
We did? Oh,
Yeah, it was
Because
awesome.
it's the
I didn't
first
even
time in a
notice.
month that I made an announcement.
Yeah, I think without cameras on, we have a bigger allowance, Emperor, I think.
Oh, gotcha.
Peop-
But the point was, we had a whole bunch of people in here, and it was really good discussion.
That's
We
pretty
put
cool.
them to sleep.
Yeah,
That's
that's
few of
okay.
them,
The
including
governance can
you.
be like that sometimes. All right, thanks everyone for coming, and let's close out.
All right.
Love you all.
Yeah. Love you too, Carlitos.
Hold on,
Love
before you go,
too.
Saint, did you have a
Oh, Jesus.
question, Saint?
Hmm?
I think he was just
No.
gonna bullshit with us.
No, I wasn't. I don't understand much of this, but I commend your hard work and your good ideas.
Oh,
Thanks, Saint.
Thank you, friend.
we're not falling for your pirate tricks.
La piratos.
We're not paying your ransom duty, whatever.
Yeah, I didn't mean to bant. I just came here to check it out and see if I can figure